make sure you're scratching an itch that you're actually interested in. You're not just chasing something. It's really competitive out there. It's hard enough to start a business. So um, yeah, try to find a place where, you're going to provide some sort of unique value.
Hey everyone, this is Devin Miller here with another episode of the Inventive Journey. I'm your host, Devin Miller, a serial entrepreneur that's grown several startups into 7- and 8-figure businesses, as well as the founder and CEO of Miller IP Law, where he helps startups and small businesses with their patents and trademarks. If you ever need help with yours, just go to strategymeeting.com and we're always here to help. Now, today we have another great guest on the podcast, Mike Williams. And Mike initially went to college to study finance and IT, and then he graduated and worked for the consulting firm Accenture for about 3 years. After which, started a business with a buddy from school doing event ticket space, and has been doing that for about 7 years. Started doing after doing that for about 7 years, also got into kind of the no code or low code type of automation and building services for a lot of software and for websites and whatnot, and then kind of built out a studio around that. Has been doing that for about 2 years, and then has also acted as a role of CTO for a couple different startups. So plenty to keep busy with. And with that, welcome onto the podcast, Mike.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So I gave kind of a quick run through of a bit of your journey, but take us back in time and tell us a little bit about how things got started for you in college with studying finance and IT.
Yeah, I think you kind of covered all the main points. I actually came in as just a finance major. I was always really interested in finance and investing and just business. I initially thought I'd end up in finance, just because that was kind of what I was interested in. As part of the business school, your first couple of years, you take a lot of core classes to kind of, you take accounting and this and that. I took a CIS class, computer information systems, and realized that, I was super interested in it. Ended up immediately tacking it on as a minor, and I eventually bumped that up to a double major. Once I realized like that was really an itch I wanted to scratch. I was always kind of technical, but again, I never really thought I'd get into dev or anything like that. But I took the class, and it was pretty clear that I wanted to do that more. And lo and behold, ended up doing a lot more on that side of things, probably with that degree than my finance one. Although finance is and economics definitely something I'm still interested in as more of a hobby.
Hmm.
Yeah, and like you said, I went to Accenture. We can talk about the Accenture and the no code, low code stuff, but I'll pause there.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. So you went to school, you got the degrees, you started out in finance, got into the technical side of things, kind of ended up gravitating more toward the technical side a bit. Now, when you graduated, was Accenture, was that kind of the dream job? That's what you always wanted to do. That was the job that was offered to you that, was a good paying, or kind of what made you initially go down that route of doing consulting at Accenture?
Yeah, I went to school in kind of central Western Virginia, James Madison University, in case anyone's listening. But 2 hours from DC, which is where I grew up. And big consulting presence there. A lot of government contracting. So a big 80%, especially in the CIS side and the business school. Tons of just consulting firm. The big four, accounting and Accenture and Deloitte and all them. I actually with Accenture actually didn't recruit full time on campus. I kind of got lucky. They had one internship position my junior year, and they were hiring just one, and I was lucky enough to get it. And so my senior year, I actually had a job going into the year, which was pretty cool. But yeah, so in terms of, I never, I didn't really know the difference between all the consultants and firms and contractors at the time, but I liked all the people I met there. The interview went well, and that's just kind of where I ended up.
No, makes sense. So now you did that for 3 years, and kind of worked for there, and then how did you guys, or what made you kind of decide to go, or start working with your buddy from school and get into more of the event ticket space, and kind of what made you take that leap from Accenture to the next phase of your journey?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of random, but I always wanted to have my own business. Really, that was something. There was never any doubt about that. I never knew how I would make that happen, but I found an opportunity. One of my buddies was kind of involved in a few things, needed a co-founder. I ended up getting to the point where I realized I could go kind of full time on that. So I put in my notice and that was it. Didn't have any hard feelings or anything towards Accenture or anyone I worked with, but that was my opportunity to go full time, self-employed, and that was probably 7 years ago. So haven't looked back.
So now you do that. So was it kind of just on a whim? Oh, that sounds like a fun thing, or were you always wanting to be an entrepreneur, always wanting to kind of run more of your own ship, or kind of, because if you're in the century, you've probably got a reasonable pay, things are going well, you've been there for a few years. So what was kind of the tipping point, as your buddy reached out, and kind of what was the motivation or the tipping point to say, okay, I'll pursue that opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't feel that crazy at the time. The business we ended up starting, it was kind of, it was like cash flow positive from the start. It wasn't something we were gonna like give up, eat ramen for 2 years or anything like that. So it wasn't all that crazy. I knew I could make it work financially, and I had some money saved up anyway. Like you said, Accenture had some, the pay was good and 401k and all that. So it honestly didn't feel that crazy. A lot of people, my mom thought I was a little crazier than I thought, but uh, yeah, to me, it really didn't feel, it definitely felt like the right move.
Awesome. No, definitely makes sense. So now you take that leap. You say, okay, I got a bit of savings. It's cash flow positive. I want to try this out. So you jump over to it and get into the event ticket space. Was that a good decision? Was it a company that continued to ramp up and move in the right direction? Was it one where it was bumps and hills along the way? Did you have to pivot, or kind of how did it go as you now get into the world from the larger consulting company to being more intricate and running a new or your own company?
Yeah, it was pretty. Um, I mean, the event ticket space is very commoditized. It's nothing crazy. It was just pretty like high volume, low margin kind of stuff. We had like a marketplace. It's Sharp Seed. It's actually still running pretty much on autopilot. Um, so that was more of a it was a good bit different than what I do now because we were just dealing with a lot of like wholesale kind of stuff. So only a few big customers. We weren't doing as much retail. But anyway, I don't necessarily want to like bore anyone with all that. But yeah, it was pretty like typical. I think we happen to be in event tickets. It could have been any like e-commerce business. Really, I imagine would have been a similar lifestyle of just operations, just managing sales and invoices and POs and again nothing too crazy there, but it was a good way to get our feet wet. Again, it was just kind of a normal like cash flow business. It wasn't anything where we were like raising money or anything like that. And then that was kind of a good way to just get into the groove of having to manage finances and all that stuff. And
Hmm.
it kind of led me here. I wasn't doing as much tech as I wanted to. I actually started, we can obviously transition into this, but that's what got me into kind of some of the no code, low code stuff was just automating a lot of the processes. There were some things that were very monotonous. It was just the same thing every day, in terms of like tracking invoices, stuff like that. Um, and, and like outsourcing some stuff and like project management, but that's what got me into no code low code just as kind of a hobby and a way to automate the business, which they're still kind of on autopilot right now. And then that eventually made the move to wanting to scratch that itch more and started doing that more professionally, and that's what I'm doing right now with Build Lab.
Now, one question. So, that definitely, it sounds like, not putting words in your mouth, but that was a bit of almost a gradual thing where, hey, we need to automate a few things. It'd be nice if I didn't have to do this repetitive part of the business every day. So how can we, offload that, or minimize that? And so as you're kind of, work or testing that out, figuring that out, how did did the business shift in that direction? Did you say, hey, this is an opportunity for something I'd like to pursue? That's kind of separate from this business, or kind of how did you, as it sounds like, start to incrementally move into that and say, okay, now I'd like to do this as a full-time gig?
Um, yeah, I mean, is the question just what made me decide to like jump into that more full time?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it kind of yeah, again, I mean, I've kind of always just gone with the flow. Like it's kind of I've never really had a 5-year plan or anything, so it just kind of worked out that way. And it was something I had started to dabble with, and I started just to mess around to see what the market was like. Like I ended up making just a freelance profile and starting to just like work for a few companies. I kind of want to see what the demand was like, what kind of businesses, because I kind of automated, I pretty much maxed out like my business. I was doing the same stuff every day. I kind of solved every problem I needed to solve.
Mm,
Again, it was kind of an autopilot thing. I realized I was kind of maxed out there. But so I wanted to see like some other businesses and how they were maybe using these tools. And eventually, like I always wanted to get into more product stuff and like SaaS and do more development. But it's hard to just think of a SaaS idea, for example, off the top of your head. So you really got to see like real problems and get involved in industry. So I wanted to do that, and freelancing was a good way to do that. Started just dabbling with that. Um, COVID actually ended up hitting, which shut like live events. There wasn't a live event for like a year and a half. So I realized like that side of the business was on hold, obviously. So it was just a perfect opportunity to kind of like dive in and
mm.
um, get into more of the dev stuff. And then I ended up teaching myself to code. So I kind of maxed out some of the low code, no code stuff, got into code, kind of used those two in conjunction and kind of what I thought were unique ways that I could help other people with. And so now, transition to building up a little more of a studio and, in addition to doing like advisory and consultancy stuff. And so that's what I'm doing now.
And now, as you kind of, and just out of curiosity, with the kind of the event space ticketing business, is that one still going? Are you still active? Did you step away from it? Kind of as you were saying, okay, now I want to do this automation. I want to do the low code, no code type of thing. Did you step away and put this as your full time focus, or do you still balance between both of those?
Yeah, I'm definitely taking some time away. I wanted to try something new anyway. Again, like COVID came and it was just like, I mean, hey, that's a perfect opportunity.
Hmm.
Um, Luckily, I'd kind of already been dabbling, so I kind of didn't have. I could kind of keep cash flow coming, and I could kind of ease that transition a little bit. It wasn't like as disruptive as it probably would have been, but definitely what like a lot more interested in what I'm doing now. There's so many different problems. Working with other companies as opposed to just having your own company, you you just get to see so many different problems, and it really broadens your horizons a little bit. And ironically, I have one of my clients is in the ticket space, so I'm still kind of doing that. It's kind of like worlds colliding there.
No, that definitely makes sense. Or makes sense. Now you've kind of had COVID hit. You've kind or already dabbling with it now, putting a full time focus. And as you put that full time focus, how has it gone? Has it been one where there's been a demand and need and more things to do than time to do it? Has been one where it's kind of ebb and flow and come and go, or kind of as you transition yet again? How has that gone for you?
It's definitely going well. I mean, I could tell the demand was there. There were just a handful of people doing some of the stuff I was doing. And again, like that's where I mentioned before, scratching your own itch, like actually being in the weeds is a great way to realize where there's market opportunity. One of the things we do, build up kind of as like development as one arm and then like automation integration stuff, which is more the no code. And one thing we do, we're partnered with Integramat, which is like an automation platform similar to Zapier.
Mhm.
And I mean, there's a handful of companies doing Integramat consulting. So, we get just a ton of leads that, there's not, I expect this to change, but it was just a really good combination of high demand, not as much competition. Um, so yeah, we get a lot of lead gen, more work than I can take. I'm like scaling the team up is something that I'm really trying to do. But yeah, it's been going well. I've learned a lot of things, experimented with a lot of kind of like arrangements. Right now we're on the Integromat side specifically. We do more like monthly kind of ongoing stuff as opposed to just like a one-time job or hourly stuff. I kind of realized that it's just a better outcome for both sides if you can have more of this like long-term relationship kind of retainer model than just like in and out on a job.
Mhm.
Um, which early in my career, I'd take like just any work that came in and, got kind of a little burnt out, realized like I wanted to be more focused, but I've gotten into a good place where I have a lot of like, involved in a lot of really exciting companies in varying degrees. Maybe we might just be doing contract work on some of them. I'm more of like a consultant fractional CTO. I'm partnered on a couple ventures that, um, can't talk about quite yet, but hopefully soon. So
It
sounds like
sounds
I'm all
like
over the place, but they're actually really focused. Like it's all kind of the same. I don't feel like I'm like spreading myself out.
no, it sounds like it's been a good transition over for you. It's been a good opportunity and something that definitely presents an ability to scale up and continue forward. So that's awesome. So well, now as we kind of wrap towards the end of the podcast, and we kind of now are caught up to where you're at in your journey, I always have two questions I ask at the end of each episode. So we'll jump to those now. So the first question I ask is, along your journey, what was the worst business decision you ever made, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier where I think it was taking work that wasn't great fit or the client fit wasn't there or the work fit. Early in the game, I think everyone who does like freelancing agency work, consulting, like learns this eventually where you can't just say yes to all the work that comes in. I had a few projects that we kind of, against my better judgment, had just a bad, gut feel from the call. Thought that like maybe it wasn't a great fit. The scope wasn't very clear. Some clients don't necessarily know what they want. They're not necessarily malicious, but I've had instances where they weren't really, they were kind of all over the place with the vision and there was a bunch of scope creep. So um, yeah, I think taking a few, luckily there hasn't been too many, but a handful of like projects that ended up not being a great fit that I took like against my gut feeling, that unfortunately didn't work out the way I wanted them to. I always like to take work that I think is, we can have a really positive outcome on. So I'm sure that's pretty common, but that's my answer to that.
No, definitely makes sense. So now I'll ask the second question, which is, now if you're talking to somebody that's just getting into a startup or a small business, what'd be the one piece of advice you give them?
Yeah, honestly, I've answered this before, but I don't feel like I'm in a position to give advice. Like, I feel like I've always just done like followed where my interests were, and it's worked out for me. It's really different. Some people again they might be working for more of like a cash flow kind of lifestyle business. Some of them might be more of like a ramen startup. Which so it's going to depend a lot, but I would say I would use that maybe as my answer is just, make sure you're scratching an itch that you're actually interested in. You're not just chasing something. It's really competitive out there. It's hard enough to start a business. So, um, yeah, try to find a place where, I mean, you're going to provide some sort of unique value,
No,
and make
yeah,
sure you're interested in
definitely.
it for sure.
I think that's good advice, and one that, oftentimes, kind of as almost you mentioned, you get into the freelance or independent contractor consulting area, and you tend to take kind of anything that comes your way because you're wanting to make sure that you put, food on the table, so to speak. And yet, oftentimes, when you can find that area where you're passionate about, you're excited about, that lines up with, lines up with, what you want to do, that's where you tend to be the most successful and to thrive. So I definitely think that's a great piece of advice. Well, as we wrap up, if people want to reach out to you, they want to be a client, they want to be a customer, they want to hire you, they want to be an investor, they want to be an employee, they want to be your next best friend, any or all of the above, what's the best way to reach out, connect with you, and find out more?
Buildlab.co is the site, .co. That's a good place to reach out. I'm on Twitter at Mike Though, Though. And people will DM me on there randomly with just questions or potential work, or I'm open to any of that stuff. So yeah, anyone who wants to reach out and just, has a question or needs help or whatever, those are the two places.
Awesome. Well, I definitely encourage people to reach out, connect up, and find out more. And certainly I appreciate you coming on. Now, for all of you that are listeners, if you have your own journey to tell and you'd like to be or come on and be a guest and share your journey, feel free to go to inventiveguest.com and apply to be on the podcast. Two more things as listeners. One, make sure to click or subscribe in your podcast player so you know when all of our awesome episodes come out. And two, leave us a review so other people can find out about all of our awesome episodes. Last but not least, if you ever have any questions about patents, trademarks, or anything else, feel free to go to strategymeeting.com, grab some time with us to chat, and we're always here to help. Thank you again, Mike. Appreciate the time coming on. It's been fun. It's been a pleasure, and wish the next leg of your journey even better than the last.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Devin.